Here with reaction, Fox News contributor Sara Carter, the host of the Larry Elder Show for the Epoch Times. Larry Elder. Look, Sara, you have been an incredible reporter, investigative reporter for this show down at the southern border. You have dealt with the cartels. You have dealt with the drug traffickers. You've dealt with the human traffickers, even young girls, you know, that not even of teenage years being raped along this path. Drug cartels controlling every aspect of this. Not one person is crossing the border without having to pay them. With Title 42 going away, what's next?
Sean, it's President Biden is like tripling down on his chaotic border policy, and he's going to make it so far worse. Not only, and you're right, not only are the children that are being trafficked and the women and men as well being abused and being taken advantage of, being turned into slavery, being used for sex, but now Americans are dying, and we can see that with what happened in California, but with what's happening across the country with counterfeit pills and the poison that is being supplied by the Mexican cartels, and by the way, by the Chinese Communist Party, which knows it's sending these precursor chemicals into Mexico that are ending up in our country with over 107,000 deaths. It is already too late. They need to lock down the border. They need to follow the law and the policy, and they need to give our Border Patrol agents, as well as our DEA and other federal law enforcement, the tools they need to stop this madness, because people are dying on both sides of the border. This is an issue for the whole Western Hemisphere, and now we're under direct threat of being targeted by terrorists because of this chaos, Sean. It's really unfortunate. It's wrong. And I don't know where it's going to end up, honestly. That was your question. Where is this going to end up? Well, it's going to end up in a really bad spot if President Biden and this administration doesn't get together and find a solution quickly.
So, Larry, we're going to take air marshals out of the sky. That means passengers on commercial airlines are not going to be safe. We're going to send those guys to the border. But you have a governor in California, and you have cities in California. The state is a sanctuary state. You have sanctuary cities. You give benefits to illegal immigrants that don't respect our laws, our sovereignty, our borders. If I'm an illegal immigrant, I'm headed right to where you live.
Yeah, come on down. And, Sean, the fact that people are not marching on Washington with pitchforks is a testament to how little the rest of the country is aware of all of this. If we learn anything from the Twitter files, we know that much of the information that is uncomfortable to the left is being suppressed. I watch Bill Melugин's reports almost every morning, talks about the people coming across the border, streaming across here. As you pointed out, probably 5 million illegal aliens, maybe not even including the so-called gotaways. And then I cut on CNN or MSNBC. They're not even covering it. How much is this costing us in crime, in health care, in educational benefits, in housing benefits? And when Gavin Newsom is the voice of reason, that's the apocalypse, because he's Mr. Sanctuary State. He's expanded the number of illegal aliens who can get free health care at taxpayer expense. He hired the guy named George Gascon, who just ordered his prosecutors not to charge illegal aliens with crimes for fear that they might be deported. And he's the voice of reason. This is absolute madness.
You know, it's madness, but it's happening. You know, we're losing, as you know, Sarah, 300 people on average a week to fentanyl and opioid overdoses. You have described scenes that really are nightmarish of young girls being trafficked. I mean, girls as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. You have witnessed areas where they have been raped. You've heard their stories. You've interviewed some of these people. How bad is it? What part of this is the government missing?
They're missing the fact that children are suffering. That's what I've been talking about on the Dark Wars podcast. That podcast that I'm putting together is so that the American people can understand what is really happening here. These children are literally being tortured day and night. Many of them disappear into the darkness. Nobody ever knows what happens to them. They are killed. They are left for dead on the trail, on their way to the Americas, on their way into America. And once they get here, Sean, I can tell you this, many of the people that claim to be their guardians are not their guardians. These are people that are abusing the children here in the United States. Many of these kids are left or dead. And we had on your show not too long ago a human smuggler that admitted some of these children are actually being used for organ harvesting. This is what the government does not get, that they are perpetuating actually this type of horror on these children and on the American people. We are literally the last leg of movement for the drug cartels. They're basically using our government to move these children into the arms of predators. And eventually this has to stop. I mean, the Biden administration cannot ignore this forever, because eventually, just like Larry said, the people are going to be marching on Washington and demanding that this stop. And people are losing their children, and they're losing their children in America to poisoning, not to overdose, to poisoning, direct poisoning from counterfeit pills. So there is nothing good about this, and the only people that benefit are the drug cartels and the human traffickers, Sean, and it's eventually got to stop.
Larry, we give you the last word.
You know, Sean, right after Biden got elected, ABC's Martha Raddatz interviewed this guy trying to cross the border. And she said, would you have done this if Donald Trump had gotten reelected? He said, no. Biden has given us permiso. She was shocked. He admitted it was because of Biden's election that they were coming. And remember that during the debate, Biden said there's going to be a surge on the borders. This is exactly what he did by reversing the racist Donald Trump policies. He's gotten exactly what he wants, and it was by design.
All right, Larry Elder, thank you. Sara Carter, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.